Well, I want to take it from a different perspective.
Okay.
Altogether. We need to understand what Ghana is. What is this entity called Ghana? How did it come about? Who put it together? What the space we call Ghana today was made up of 4 colonies.
Yeah.
The Gold Coast, Ashanti, Northern Territories, Transwater Togoland. Prior to that, it was under the British administration, let me put it that way. Even prior to it being under British administration, it was a group of business people in Europe who decided that, look, we want to go and exploit this part of the world, came over and took over the place. You know very well about the Scramble of Africa in 1885. Some people went to sit at a dining table in Germany, took the map of Africa, and shared it for themselves, without recourse to the peoples of Africa. And when I say the peoples of Africa, I'm talking about the nations of Africa. Say nations, it's the people with a common sense of belonging, a common sense of history, a common sense of religion. So if you take, for example, the Akans in West Africa, they are a nation on their own. If you take the Gadangme, they are a nation. You take the Ewe in West Africa, and the Ewe in West Africa stretches from what today we call Ghana, all the way to Nigeria, parts of Western Nigeria.
Yeah.
So, and let's take the Ewe, for example. They have been divided into 4 separate entities of Ghana, Togo, Benin, and Nigeria. All these states that we find ourselves in are artificial states that were imposed on already existing states. And out of that, we created this thing we call Ghana today. Independence. What did we get? Self-management at best. Because all the Europeans did was that, okay, instead of having a white-faced colonial master, they trained a few African people in their own schools, whether it was Achimota, Infantsipim, Disadel, all these schools, to develop a certain cadre of white men in black skins to rule for and on their behalf in their absence.
Yeah.
That is what we are in today. What we call Ghana today, that is what it is. Whether it was Nkrumah, it was J.B. Dankwa, Busia, all of them were all part of that system, and it's that system that developed them. Or they all came from the same school. They all went to Achimota. They were all military officers, all of them, Rollins. All of them are products of the colonial enterprise. It didn't just happen in Ghana. It happened in Ghana, it happened in Kenya, it happened in Tanzania. The creation of an act of parliament in Britain. There's an act of parliament, I think it's called the Ghana Independence Act, 1957. It was a creation of that. Go and read the Hansard and see how it came about. So we have superimposed these modern so-called institutions or states on our traditional states and its values and its culture. That is why you and I speak in English. Even though we are Africans, we have our own languages. We have languages that we should be proud of. We can only communicate in the language of our master or of our colonial government or the colonial enterprise. Why? Because when we got independence, we did not recraft the state to reflect who we are. We left it at what others have made us to be.
Valid point.
So, who are we? Are we surrogates of the European creation, or we are what we had always been, as maybe Gadangme or Nzima or Akan? I mean, let me use Akan, the Gadangme or Akan or Ewe.
So the model made us to lose our originality.
So the model over time is making us lose who we are. So I'll give you an example. That is why if you come to Africa today, all our languages are under pressure. All our Guan languages are disappearing. All our coastal languages are disappearing. In Greater Accra. So the difference between us and the Asians, including India, I mean, my uncle was ambassador to India. When he was ambassador to India, I even lived with him. I lived with him for about 3-4 months.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I stayed with him at the High Commission for about 4 months. So India,
he's mine.
I know.
India has the same
This
problem.
is family matter. This is not politics.
India had the same problem.
His only loss.
Malaysia,
No, he's just texted me that he's reflecting on
it will never happen.
on your
As a great grandson of Park Grant.
yes. He said he's reflecting on it.
Park Grant is our great grandfather. Ask him.
Yes.
And he was saying what?
Okay.
Don't worry, let me finish what I was saying.
So you're using Asia, yes. You're
Asia
citing
as an
Asia as an
example.
example.
They had the same problem.
Yes.
Where they had been banged up together, but what they did was that within their states, they realigned the states to reflect who they are. If you take Malaysia, for example, that's why Malaysia is a federation. It's a federation along their ethno-linguistic lines.
True.
It has not led to their collapse. It has rather helped them stay together because everybody is able to take care of themselves. Is also a beneficiary of his own resources and contributes to the center. If you go to Sarawak, the development in Sarawak is different from what you find in Kuala Lumpur. But they're all in Malaysia together. They move freely, they work together, but everybody, there's what you call devolution. And then there's also fiscal devolution, like Britain is doing today. There's a chamber for Scotland. Scotland has its assembly, Wales has its assembly, Northern Ireland has its assembly. Why? Because they want to keep their culture, to keep who they are. If you go to Wales, I keep telling people that when you enter Wales, the language is different. They speak Gaelic or something like that. It's a very completely different language. If you go to Germany, it's the same. Germany is a federation of the peoples of Germany. Some of them speak different languages, like Bavaria. They speak a completely different language from the rest of Germany. So we could have followed in the same model. But our African political elite at that time, the new political elite, said that, let us keep the status quo. Let us manage it as it is. So basically all we have been doing, including us who are today in the modern political structures, are only perpetuating what the colonial administration put together. Whether it is the economy, whether it is the politics, whether it's the management of the state, whether it is statecraft, we are just continuing and perpetuating the same colonial structures. We have not gone down to the drawing board to make the necessary changes. And the Indian example I was given, India had this guy called Sardar Patel. He was the deputy prime minister of India.
Yeah.
He said that, no, the British have left us with chaos, but we can realign our states internally. So India, there were even parts of India that were Portuguese, Goa and Co. They were Portuguese colonies. They took over and they said, no, all these people must be reintegrated back into India, and then they realigned the states. So when you go into India, the reason why they're able to live together peacefully is because the states are ethno-linguistically homogeneous, all the way to the district assembly. In Ghana, we've been lucky that our local assembly structure, the local government structure, is based on our traditional political boundaries. So it doesn't overlap. So if you take TMA, people think Tema Traditional Council, it includes Adenta, Ashaiman, Tema Metro, and Tema West. They all fall within the territorial boundaries of the Tema Traditional Council, and therefore they feel part and parcel of the decision-making process. They don't feel that they are losing out or their resources are on the other side and blah, blah, blah. That is how come we have had this very tranquil situation. 90% of the conflicts that are happening in Africa, whether it is today Goma and is the same matter. Liberia and Sierra Leone was a similar matter. Ethiopia is the same matter. All I'm just trying to drive at is that we have built these artificial states without recourse to our original states. And because of that, we are gradually losing our cultures to this new modern entity that we have created. Unlike the Americas, where like the USA, Canada, all the way to Argentina and beyond, the Europeans went there and eliminated the indigenous people, like they were doing in South Africa. They eliminated the indigenous people and created their own European institutions. So all their prime ministers and presidents are European. Some of them even are dual citizens of Argentina and maybe Spain, or Argentina, Chile and Germany. They are all European, even in they are like white South Africans. So you can't tell the difference. In our case, the people who are colonizing us today, what Kwame Nkrumah called Neocolonialism, or the disguised form of colonialism, are black people like us. Some of them are plain stooges for Western powers. I don't need to mention this, but there's enough in Africa in the past, Zaire, Central African Republic, when we had this PLO Lumbaba speaking, and he gave examples of those places. All of them, our neighboring countries, Equatorial Guinea. Now the people want to be in power and even leave the power with their children. What's the guy's name? Paul Biya, 40-something years, as old as me in power. And there's nothing to show, because in Africa, when the political elite gets power, it's for him and his family and his children and his maybe extended family to a large extent. So this conflict is what we have not been able to resolve over the years. Unlike the Asians, they've been able to resolve that. They resolved that quickly. But it wasn't that our forebears didn't know. The OAU meeting of 1964, African Organization of African Unity meeting of the predecessor to the current AU, it was an issue put on the table. In fact, it was Kwame Nkrumah who brought that issue on the table and said that, no, we have to reflect and look at how we integrate the states. Even though he was saying it out there, he was doing the opposite here. However, there was people like Nyerere who said, no, let's keep the states as they are, let's manage it as it is. And we have never been able to grow or develop. So you take an example of Ghana, let's use Galamsey as an example. A mining company comes to Accra, gets to the minister's office, the government does a big ceremony of it, blah, 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 and says that go to district ABC, there's gold there, go and mine. Go to the district to go and mine, and you're mining on somebody's farm. But the state called Ghana has given you the opportunity to go there. What is the difference between that structure and what the colonial government was doing? There's absolutely no difference. There's absolutely no difference. So the chiefs over time have also learned that, oh, you know what, let us also oppose the state slowly. So sometimes you would see the states trying to, let's say, mine in a certain area. The chiefs oppose it. But the chiefs now allow their own indigenous people to go and mine in that area, and then they do language before. No. If you're lucky, you find somebody who has named his store with an Akan name.
Yeah.
But it's just English. Let me give you another example. Countries like Vietnam, they were purely French-speaking countries. Today, nobody in Vietnam speaks French. They have been able to reverse that colonial structure, and today everybody in Vietnam speaks their local dialect. And there are several dialects of the Vietnamese language. They also have very large differences like we also do. But they've been able to make everybody feel part and parcel of the state. China. People think that the Chinese are all speaking Mandarin. No. When you go to Fujian, they speak a different language. It's just next door to Hong Kong. And they speak a different language the rest of the people of China do not understand. But their states post the modern China are all based on their ethno-linguistic boundaries, and therefore everybody feels part and parcel of the state and contributes to the center. That is what Africa as a whole should be modeling over, or should be modeling around. Europe, you take a country like Slovenia and Slovakia. Yeah, it's like Ghana and Dangwe. But they are two separate entities on their own. I mean, I can go on and on and on and give you examples of how the UAE, what is it? It's a federation along their ethno-linguistic lines, and even run by their traditional political elite, their chieftaincy institutions. They don't even have any democracy. It's from father to son, as their traditional systems are. And look at the growth and development.
So it's a monarch.
Yeah, this is a monarchy.
Yeah.
But we also have some monarchs amongst us in our systems. But what I'm just trying to drive at is that foundation must be laid properly or put together well. And it is on that basis that we can save and secure our culture, save and secure our future, save and secure who we are. And then once people feel part and parcel of the state and feel that they are prime beneficiaries of the resources under their feet, trust me, the energy to work and work for Ghana will be there. The love to serve the country will be there, because you bring out what you call the we feeling, that common sense of belonging or common sense of benefits. Today, people feel that, oh no, I may not benefit, and therefore let me get the best out of it and disappear. Whether it's in politics, whether it's in academia, wherever it is, people are just fleecing Ghana in the name of maybe politics. However, when people feel part and parcel of the state, this we feeling will be there. All the things the virtues that my uncle was speaking about. I mean, these are virtues that we learn in civics. we can develop them. We can develop them through a 1 year national service, a 1 year military service. You can always, young pioneers and Boy Scouts are no different. Young pioneers and Boys Brigade are no different. The values that you developed in the young pioneers are values that you can even develop at home or in church or through your mosque. However, when you are crafting a state, all these fundamental issues must be addressed so that people will feel part and parcel of the state. We will not feel that we are creating an European extension on the continent of Africa in the name of a country called Ghana or Zimbabwe or what. It's not in the name. It is in the structure of the state. That is where that difference will be made. And once that is settled, the energies of the people would grow. When you go to India today, nobody is fighting over territorial boundaries. Unlike we, fighting when you go to Goma and Co. I'm using Goma as a recent example. We are fighting over just territorial boundaries. The Tutsis on one side say that we want to be, we are not being taken care of, or we are not being recognized as part of the so-called Congo. What is this thing called Congo, for example? It was created by some Belgian king. Sat somewhere, took the map of Africa, chose it for himself and says, it is mine. And then we as political elites are still trying to let it stay as it is. It's not going to happen. And it's not going to work. And people would always use that as an opportunity to pitch A against B and A against B until we go to the drawing board as a people and take these things into cognizance and go back to the drawing board and, build, as I know my uncle is watching, build a state that is capable of turning our aspirations into reality. We will not be going anywhere.
I see. And clearly from what you just said, I get the sense that the structure that existed, the traditional structure that existed, and the superstructure which was imposed on this structure by our colonial masters, increasingly, the basic structure is weakening and giving way to the superstructure. Is that the point you're trying to make?
Today, you find the modern states everywhere.
Yes.
So we have district assemblies, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
But in reality, if you look at our local governance structure,
yes,
we have solved that problem in the local government structure.
Yes.
By allowing the districts to fall within the traditional territorial boundaries. That is what we have. What now people are pushing for is for us to elect our political leaders at that level. Mm-hmm. Once that is done, and we add a little bit of devolution, fiscal devolution, they will control the base. The traditional political authorities will control the whole base. That is why when we are going on a campaign and you go to a village,
so that's...
you can't just go and enter a town and campaign. Ask him. You have to go to the chief. The chief is the one that gives you the permission to go and talk to his people. You cannot just enter a town and go and speak. Nobody will come. Nobody. There are places where you go, nobody will assemble. For your political party will tell you, let's go to the chief's palace. So we always go to the chief's palace, take permission. Then we go to the people and go and talk to them.
I get it. But the reason why I'm saying that the superstructure appears to be corroding the basic structure is because even some of these chiefs that we're talking about some of them have become very partisan. They've been compromised.
See, partisanship is a different thing altogether.
No, through this.
Because they also want access to power.
Yes.
The power now sits with the superstructure.
Executive.
The superstructure.
Yes.
But they also want access to power. And they always outlast the government.
True.
They always allow it. So maybe it's a card that they play. But when you listen to them...
But did that, you see, the question I'm asking is, did that used to be the case?
It has always been the case from even the colonial times. Because why? The Europeans came and they were interacting with our chiefs.
Okay.
They started with our chiefs before they created the institutions that we are now in. As politicians.
So the corrupting of our traditional authorities does not start from today?
No, it wasn't. For them, it was not corruption.
From where we sit. They would see it as normal.
No, so for them, they were trading with the white man.
Yes.
They were bargaining with the white man for and on behalf of their people or for themselves, whichever way.
Yeah.
But they had the legitimate authority of their people to do so. Because they were their chiefs.
Yes.
I always give you this example of Aborigines Rights Protection Society. It was headed by chiefs and a few business people.
Yes.
But they had the presence of mind, knew that, no, what this white man is bringing was a disguised form of taking our land.
Their lands, yeah.
That same agreement is what they took to New Zealand. That thing they call the Waitangi Agreement. It was in the same period.
Right.
Well, 1840, 1844. Maybe the ship that came here sailed all the way to New Zealand and in 4 years got there.
Yeah.
And when they got, but they signed it. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say.
No, I get it.
And it has become a problem for them till date. Our forebears at that time knew that no, this transaction may not necessarily be in our interest, and therefore we should object to it. And they objected to it. Was it not the same chiefs? So our chiefs had the capacity. They don't just become chiefs. They are trained. They train in what we call in our palaces, what we today call stagecraft. They are taught. If you use our current Asante Hene, I saw a video of him explaining how he was trained and brought up and blah, blah, blah. It was a traditional form of training. It was a traditional form of training. He went to live with his uncle, went to live with this uncle, went to live with this chief. He was swapped from this school to that school, and eventually he became king. Sometimes he claims that he didn't know that he was going to be a king because he was kept away from it. It was all part of the structure.
That's fine. But you see, you said something which was important, and this is my final question to you, because I go to Ambassador Sampiali. You're saying that.
Do you think that the youth in a town just go out there to destroy the land? They must have political backing. I mean, take a place like Obuasi and ask yourself that whether Obuasi has been the prime beneficiary of all the gold that has come out of Obuasi. No. There's no. In fact, when you go to Obuasi, it's pathetic. So if you were a chief of Obuasi or BBN, recently I saw one of the chiefs on TV, lamenting. He says, we don't benefit from this gold. We see all these companies come and go, take our timber, take our gold, they come, they go. Our people are not benefiting. The youth, when you listen to the interviews that they have with your stations and co, it's the same thing that they say, we don't have the jobs, we don't get the jobs, we don't get the benefits, we don't see the wealth. It is not just with gold, it's with oil in Nigeria, the southern states. They are all saying the same thing. Why? The Ogoni people. That is what cost Tensariwa his life. So it is not something that is just even peculiar to Ghana.
Yeah.
It is the whole African structure and system. And our chiefs, in fact, they have held us together. Because if they had pitched themselves against each other, there will be chaos. Trust me, there will be chaos. So there's no way, I always say that there's no way that Galamsey would occur in a place and the chief of that area or the traditional authority of that area is not aware.
Yeah, but
it's not possible.
If this argument you're making is to hold water, how then do you explain a situation where the Asante Hene has started? In fact, he's been distooling chiefs who are seen to be superintending, either directly or indirectly.
He's exercising his traditional authority over them by distooling them. So he's doing what is right.
And you think that Asante Hene does not know what you know?
Oh, I'm sure he knows better than I do. But that's why he's distooling them. But ask your political elite whether they would sack a DCE for engaging in Galamsey. We never sack them. What will happen will be a letter, a query, at best. Even your party people in that constituency will go up in arms that you are sacking the DC.
No, but sorry. Let me come back to you on this.
If a chief, let me finish. If a chief has done what is wrong, and his senior chief has sacked him, that is the right thing to do, and he has done it. It means that he's acknowledging that some of his subordinates are involved. No problem. I'm saying bring that into the political elite, the modern structures that you have created. Have you ever heard the DCB sacked for Galamsey?
Not yet.
So it should tell you that even the traditional elite, political structures rather work in the interest of the people better than our modern political structures.
So why wouldn't, for instance, Otunfo say, well, I understand why you would look on sheepishly whilst Galamsey is being done in your backyard, because I understand you are not a direct beneficiary or you're not benefiting from the resource, in your backyard. And so if your boys are, engaged in this criminal act, I can understand. You sit there and continue. Why wouldn't Asante Hene say, I understand you, so, let it be, but would rather destool him?
Against your point, I'm sure there's a lot of pressure from different quarters, not just locally. So something must be done. But I'm saying assuming without admitting that he didn't know, and he has gotten to know, and he has taken action. Which political authority, party, MPP or NDC, has taken any action.
Has punished some
No.
local head
It doesn't happen.
for superintending
It
the
doesn't
same
happen.
thing. Anyway.
He's not doing anything different from what Gettysburg was doing.
Okay. That's interesting.